Step 5. Installing and soldering the jack. Now the original kit has a tiny push button that would be installed onto the board. Instead of that, we are going to solder in one of these 3.5 millimeter female pigtails, as I like to call them, and instead of the little switch. So you will not need the little switch. You could put this in your parts bin and save it for another day. So in the instructions I have stapled in an addendum which how to solder this in, and it is pretty straightforward. Like the switch that's included, there are only going to be two connections, and it's these mode, a little hard to see there, but mode, the two connections right below the chip. To solder this, it's like any other component. We're going to, in this case, we're going to flip the board over. We're going to go from the underside, and we're going to feed the leads in there, like that. And then to keep them from popping out and annoying us, we're going to carefully bend over the leads just to kind of hold them in place. Okay. Back to our helping hands. You will have noticed that I wasn't paying attention to whether the wire was black or red. In the case of a simple switch, a simple on-off switch, does nothing else, the polarity does not matter. So like the resistors you just did, the polarity does not matter in this case. So in this case, for the switch, it could be red, black, or black or red, doesn't matter, but it does have to go into the correct holes where the other button would have been. And we want to have it coming out the bottom for when we put in the case. So when we do the battery next, we're going to have to worry about polarity, but for this we do not. So get those wires in there. Have your soldering iron at the ready. Heat it up. Feed in some solder. And these, since these wires are a little bit bigger, they might need a little bit more solder, but not much. If you find that there's a lot of excess wire, there's really not a lot here, but you could snip off the excess. You aren't going to be cutting into the solder joint, but you are going to be clearing that excess. Now see this, when this got soldered, it's a little close to this pin, so I'm going to very gently trim that away so that it's not touching anything. So instead of the little tiny switch, you will be installing this cord. Polarity doesn't matter, but make sure the cord comes in through the bottom and solder it up. That's it for 5. We're moving on up to number 6.